Hello, I'm Megan Lasvik, Vice President from Edison Research.
And I'm Lamar Johnson, VP of Sponsorship Marketing at National Public Media. In recent years, Megan and I have had the pleasure of presenting research about radio listeners and spoken word audio listeners. And while we'll typically keep ourselves in the world of audio, today we'll be exploring a type of technology that goes far beyond audio. We're talking smart audio.
That's right, smart speakers and voice assistant technology have changed the world of audio, and we're doing our best to keep up as the technology develops. We want to measure and understand consumer sentiment and listening changes as smart audio becomes a bigger part of their lives. If you are watching this live, please enter your questions in the chat box. We have a team standing by to respond. If you're watching the replay, please send your questions to info@edisonresearch.com. And I'll go ahead and answer the first question we always get. Yes, the slide deck will be available after the webinar on npr.org/smartaudio.
This year, the Smart Audio Report 2022 from NPR and Edison Research has a special significance because it's 5 years after we originally set out to do research to understand how people were using devices like smart speakers in their homes. We have a number of years of research to reflect upon, and it's quite amazing to see how much has changed.
And before we get into our findings, we'll tell you how we found them. This spring, we conducted a national study of adults 18 and older. We surveyed over 1,000 smart speaker owners. We also surveyed over 500 people who do not own a smart speaker, but use voice assistants on other devices, such as a smartphone. And finally, we interviewed another 584 people who do not use voice assistants at all. This way, we can serve opinions about this technology from many perspectives. We have tracking data from our 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020 smart audio studies. We also conducted in-depth interviews over Zoom with smart speaker owners, voice assistant users, and those who don't use the technology at all. Finally, we conducted follow-up interviews with those who participated in ethnographic interviews from the Smart Audio Report in 2017. It was truly a treat to catch up with former study participants to see how things were going.
When we first set out to research smart speaker devices, the Google Home had only just been introduced, a few years after Amazon's Alexa device started gaining popularity. We even designed a sweet little graphic to represent those modern smart devices. Back in 2017, we interviewed a lot of early adopters, people who impressed their friends with the fun gadgets in their homes. How's it going now? Well, 5 years later, we will not even attempt to graphically represent all of the smart audio devices that are available today. The technology is everywhere, in all sorts of speakers, smartphones, smoke detectors, microwaves, and even fancy refrigerators.
We've covered voice assistant technology through various reports over the years, so we'll start by sharing what's new. First, voice is everywhere. There has been incredible increase in the amount of voice tech available at the consumer level and incredible increase in voice assistant usage. Today, we'll review the reasons why people are using voice assistant technology, the latest smart speaker ownership statistics, and estimates for usage on those smart devices. And we'll ask voice assistant users and non-users how they feel about this technology expanding into so many parts of their lives.
Next, use is increasing. As people become more familiar with the technology, some increase usage and refine their habits to just the most useful skills. We'll cover the ways people are using their devices and what types of voice requests have increased on smart speakers and smartphones. And we'll see how smart audio has changed the audio landscape.
Lastly, messages are heard. Voice assistant users are receptive to messaging. We dig into consumer reactions about advertisements heard on the smart speaker and how open they are to new ad experiences through smart audio technology. We first met Lizzie when she was living in Chicago. She agreed to let our moderator and camera person into her home after she had just given birth to her first child. Her daughter was a tiny 5-week-old, and watching Lizzie juggle her baby in a peanut butter sandwich really demonstrated how essential voice assistant technology could be for a new mom. We caught up with her this April, and surprisingly, she was home again on maternity leave with her second baby. Let's see how things are going for them.
This is my husband, Chris. This is my baby.
Oh, and she's been up.
Oh, and she spit up.
Settling into being a new mom has been quite the roller coaster. Having Alexa and the ability to do a lot more things hands-free is really helpful.
Alexa, give me my flash briefing. I was like, oh, I don't look as tired as I thought.
Just this morning I had to ask Alexa what time it was because I wasn't wearing a watch and I couldn't get to my phone.
That's
Otherwise,
still true.
You're waiting until the baby goes down for a nap to spend some time figuring out what's going on in the world.
Oh my gosh. I pulled her out of the car seat like asleep. I remember thinking, this is the one and only time I kind of hope you cry so I can prove that this works.
My favorite thing to do right now is have her calm my child. I'll yell out, Alexa, play Can't Take My Eyes Off of You by Frankie Valli, and she does, and it's wonderful. And we dance around the kitchen and the baby gets calm every time.
Alexa, play song Can't Take My Eyes Off You by Frankie Valli. Can't take my eyes. I have a look of desperation. Dear God, please turn on the song and make this stop.
I have no idea how we discovered that it is this song, but it is this song only. Play that a couple times, then you can kind of play something else, but it has to be Frankie Valli right away.
I actually was singing that song to my son dancing around the kitchen earlier today. I was like, do you also like this song? With him, I'm not sure if it's just the dancing around the kitchen or the song. With Ellie, it was the song. Like, we had done enough experimentation.
The way that I feel about a lot of the technology that we have, but also Alexa, is I don't know that you need it to live your life, but it certainly is making my life a lot simpler.
So true. Oh my gosh, that was so sweet. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we captured the weirdest little quirk that you have. So we would have some troubles dancing around now.
Yeah.
It's a little bigger than she was before.
So did Alexa move with you from Chicago to Oregon?
She actually did not. We don't have any Alexa devices. We switched to the Apple HomePod, so now I'm dependent on Siri to save my life.
And tell me about that transition.
So my husband had actually been the one to make the decision to switch devices that we would be using. And some of it was response to news stories about how often Alexa is listening to you. And also to just our lives. I'm talking to you on an iPad. I have you on an AirPod. I watched that video on my iPhone. We're pretty heavily Apple brand loyal anyway.
And how do the HomePods compare to the Alexa devices that you had?
They're similar. I'll say in my stage of life, and probably thanks to the pandemic, I'm a little less interested in hearing what's going on in the world. So some of the apps and things I used on Alexa, I don't think I would be using on her anyway. So I don't have the comparison to Siri. I mostly use Siri to control other devices in the house.
How, if at all, has your opinion of these voice assistants and this type of technology changed over the years?
You know, it's funny. I heard myself say, I don't think you need this, but it does make your life simpler. And I think I still stand by that statement, really. I mean, you don't need it. You have a phone, you have whatever. And also, if anything, now there are so many other ways to get things, even just in the Apple family. I could be playing things on my Apple TV through my TV speakers.
How does Siri help you being a parent?
Well, I think being able to play the favorite music whenever it's necessary is super helpful. And like I said, including our daughter in little learning moments. I mean, that until I started describing it to you, it didn't occur to me the value of her being able to listen to like a Wikipedia answer with us and then sort of respond to it and chat about it. it's sort of a quirky little moment, but it really works for our learning style, I guess.
Hey,
Yeah.
Ellie, I heard that you like to use Siri to play some music.
I was gonna say Encanto? Yes. What's your favorite song?
What's it called?
Which,
Waiting on a Miracle.
there it is, Waiting on a Miracle.
So there are a few things of note on this piece. First, 5 years ago, Lizzie spoke about the convenience of having hands-free access to media. Now, as a mom of a 5-year-old, she speaks of the convenience of having technology that makes it easy for her child to access media. The family's usage has grown along with her daughter. 2, moving was a life event that triggered the investment in new smart audio technology. We heard the sentiment echoed in other interviews as well, actually. And 3, her family preferred to use one ecosystem. When we interviewed her 5 years ago, Lizzie used Amazon Echoes, and now she uses Siri through all types of devices in her home.
Lizzie gave us an intimate look at smart audio in just one household. Let's see how people are using voice tech in other places. To do that, we'll need to broaden our scope wider and wider, because if there's anything we've learned from this research, it's that voice is everywhere. Estimates show that 35% of Americans 18 and older own a smart speaker, or around 100 million people. In 2021, ownership was just under a third of US adults at 32%, or around 82 million people. And here's the trending over time. You can see when we started in 2017, 16% of the US population age 18 and older owned a smart speaker. Then you can see we've laid out the estimates for each year, and above it, we showed the percent increase each year. Between 2019 and 2020, we saw the largest increase in ownership with a 29% change. And while growth has not matched that year since, we're still looking at substantial year-over-year growth.
When we first surveyed smart speaker owners, we gave them a list of reasons why someone might want to purchase the device and asked them which applied to them. The top 3 reasons for getting a smart speaker in 2017 were 1, to listen to music, 2, to ask questions without needing to type, and 3, because it seemed like a fun new gadget. So that's how it started. And here's how it's going. We again asked the same question among new smart speaker owners in 2022, and music, search functionality, and the novelty of getting the devices are still the top reasons for people to purchase one of these devices. So the top reasons haven't changed, but when we look at the full list, we are able to pull out what has changed over time.
Technology, access to media, and accessibility are reasons that were cited more often in 2022 than 5 years ago. Let's explore each topic. In this graph, we look at all smart speaker owners in 2017. Back then, devices were fairly new to all owners, and compare them with smart speaker owners from 2022, who have owned a smart speaker device for less than a year. We're basically comparing new owners back then with new owners today. In 2017, 39% of smart speaker owners said replacing an old radio was a reason to purchase a device. In 2022, 51% of new owners said replacing an old radio was a reason. That's an increase of 31%. Upgrading to new tech is a motivation for a majority of new owners. People are also looking to control smart home devices. 48% of owners were interested in smart home technology back in 2017, and 53% of new owners cited that as a reason. There certainly are analog holdouts, but the digital world is increasingly appealing to Americans.
In fact, 86% of smart speaker owners agree that smart speakers allow for a more convenient living experience. That's a sentiment we've heard in qualitative research about smart speakers over the years. Simple commands can implement all types of tasks in the home, from the simple, "What's the weather?" to a more complex sequence that turns on home lights, cameras, and alarms.
Now let's look at the items that fall under the media access category. Back in 2017, 36% said entertaining children was a reason to purchase a device. And in 2022, 49% of new owners cited that reason. That's a 36% increase. We saw earlier in the video with Lizzie how her daughter enjoyed using the family HomePod. And entertaining children has definitely been a recurring theme as we've visited smart speaker owner homes during our past studies. 5 years ago, 53% of owners said discovering new songs was a reason to purchase a smart speaker. In 2022, 63% of new owners cited music discovery as a reason. And finally, we know that podcast listening has increased a lot over the past half a decade, so it makes sense to see an increase here. In 2017, 40% cited listening to podcasts as a reason to purchase a smart speaker, and in 2022, 47% cite podcast listening as a motivation.
An increase in interest in content discovery through the smart speaker shows that people view smart speakers as a hub of information in the home. 80% of smart speaker owners who agree with the statement, smart speakers make it easy to discover new content or events.
NPR's daily podcast, Consider This, which is available on smart speakers, is a great example. Every weekday afternoon, the hosts of All Things Considered help you make sense of the major stories of the day in less than 15 minutes. And in participating regions, you'll also hear a local news segment that will help you make sense of what's going on in your community and discover your local NPR member station.
There's one more theme from this research that we'd like to highlight: accessibility. This is where we see the biggest increase in reasons for purchasing a smart speaker device. The amount of people who cited to help an elderly person as a reason to purchase a device has increased by 150%. And we saw a 50% increase in those citing help with a disability as a reason to purchase smart speakers. When we originally started our research about smart speakers, experts in the space often cited the technology's potential to help people with different levels of ability. Now we are seeing research that indicates that over a quarter of new owners do indeed consider this technology as a useful accessibility tool.
90% of smart speaker owners agree that smart speaker interactions are short and easy with a low level of effort. Of course, that means that 10% don't agree that interactions are easy or low effort, and that's something we discovered in our qualitative research.
We ended up interviewing 2 individuals with speech difficulties. They both expressed their frustration with the technology, but seemed hopeful that the technology will improve to better understand them in the future. Herb, age 50, said the voice assistants are uniform for everyone, so they don't pick up on little nuances. Derek, age 36, points out how Microsoft and Apple have powerful accessibility features that can allow you to use your voice for writing or to control a mouse. But the features are buried deep in the accessibility settings. He wished those features would be more easily available on all types of devices. We also spoke to a teacher and mom who noted that she has seen her young son's frustration when talking to a voice assistant and says, "I could see how that technology could be a point of frustration for the young or the elderly or those that have trouble communicating." So while we know voice commands are one of the many tools used to help people with all abilities, we hope and expect that the technology will continue to improve in this area.
Not long after we began researching smart speakers, we realized that we needed to measure beyond smart speakers. We needed to follow the smart audio wherever it popped up. So we began measuring all types of voice assistant usage. In 2022, 62% of Americans age 18 and older say they use a voice assistant on any device. Here we compare data from our 2020 smart audio report with our current research. We're looking at the percent of those 18 and older who use voice assistants on any one of these devices. We see the smart speaker numbers on top. That should be familiar, But look at all the other ways that people use voice assistants. Over half of the population use voice assistants on their smartphones, 51% in 2020 and 56% today. And we see growth in usage with every other item listed here. A third of Americans use voice assistants on televisions or even TV remotes.
In some of our other research, we actually see a lot of audio listening through the television, either through streaming services or channels like Music Choice. Televisions have been central in the homes for years, but they have become smarter, connected to the internet and smartphones, and they can be connected to other devices in the home. And as this slide shows, controlled by voice. We also see a rise in voice assistant usage on computers, tablets, and even household appliances. Now that voice technology is everywhere, does that mean more people are comfortable with the technology? When we first started our research back in 2017, there was a lot of conversation about privacy and security with smart speakers. Some people were uncomfortable with the idea that the devices were always listening for a wake word. And how's it going? Well, it's still going. People have mixed feelings, but that doesn't stop many of them from using the technology anyway. Our qualitative participants will demonstrate some of those sentiments in this next video.
Part of me feels like there's always someone listening to me when I'm around like those like Alexas and like Googles.
It makes me uncomfortable to think like I can be having even like a conversation like this around it and somehow it's tracking that.
I turned it on and off. I don't have it listening.
Okay.
Because it seems like everything wants to track your behavior now. And I don't know what they're doing tracking your behavior. Like even when you download an app or go to something, they ask, is this app allowed to track where you're going? No, because you just don't know.
How is it I can talk to somebody about a guitar and then like half an hour later go on Google and there's a little ad on the side for a guitar? Like how?
So it's like, okay, yeah, I know you're listening, but it's so far hasn't been anything huge.
That's what makes me suspicious, I suppose, gathering information and collecting it. And where are you storing it? And what are you doing with it? And am I going to get a Facebook ad in 10 minutes about the very thing I was talking about?
Anything that you do anymore, the data is being collected. It's going somewhere. But I feel like if you're kind of going to embrace technology and you're going to use the technology, they all go hand in hand.
The longer it's around, I think you begin to think about less. I think you accept that if your devices are on, they're kind of listening.
Various devices listed inside your home, operated by corporate entities with less than transparent motives. It's probably problematic, and we'll probably find out later, like, oh yeah, by the way, they were listening to everything, and this and that. But they're really useful, and I don't really talk about terrorism or anything inside my home. So, what am I get to worry about?
In general, I guess, yeah, I do worry a little, but it's one of those trade-offs. What are you gonna do?
I think if hackers got onto my voice assistant Siri, they'd be extremely disappointed that he's just like sending some boring texts and looking at songs.
What am I really doing on it? You want to hack in and see how many times I've listened to Encanto? Be my guest.
They're gathering my data without consent or without reimbursement. Like my data should not be free. Like stuff about me to target advertisements and stuff like that should be something like we shouldn't just be able to give that to them for free. Like that does not make sense to me. So
the more information a company has about me, like the better, because they'll give me better recommendations and like a more personalized, like whether it's Google and they're giving me like more relevant ads. Like I appreciate that. And I know people who are like, no, I don't want any of my information like tracked or shared anywhere. And I respect that as well, but I am totally fine with it. And I figure that like data is big enough and like enough people have their data in the cloud and with all these various companies that like if there were some sort of big hack, like I wouldn't be the only one affected. And so it would be a problem that's like bigger than me. So it's not really like a small enough problem for me to worry about.
Let's review what the survey data says on the same topic. Here we see the percent agreeing with statements asked in 2017. indicated in yellow, and in 2022, indicated in purple. Just about half of smart speaker owners agree with the statement, you worry that hackers could use your smart speaker to gain access to your home or personal information. And you can see there isn't much of a change between 5 years ago and today. We do, however, see that in 2022, more people agree with the statement, it bothers you that your smart speaker is always listening. There is a little less concern about the government. In 2022, 43% agree with the statement, you worry that your smart speaker could allow the government to listen to your private conversations, compared to 48% in 2017. We also tested an additional statement in 2022. 58% of smart speaker owners agree with the statement, you trust the companies that make the smart speaker to keep your information secure.
Now, let's compare the sentiments from the current smart speaker owners with smart speaker non-owners. On the left, you'll see the percent of smart speaker owners who agree with a statement about smart speakers. And on the right, you see the percentage of those who don't own a smart speaker who say that item is a reason they do not own a smart speaker device. 52% of owners agreed with the statement, it bothers you that voice-enabled smart speakers are always listening. And 50% of non-owners said it was a reason they haven't purchased a device. When you go down the list, you can see that a good portion of everyone, non-owners and owners, express some of the same concerns about the devices always listening. And we heard echoes of this sentiment in some of the videos you saw earlier as well.
We asked those who don't own a smart speaker if they were likely to purchase one in the next 6 months. In 2017, when fewer people owned a smart speaker, we saw a larger percentage of people who said they were very or somewhat likely to purchase one. Over half of non-owners indicated they planned on becoming owners.
In our recent study, we see a third of non-owners indicated an interest in purchasing a device. There is still room for a lot of growth in this space. Lamar, how does NPR take advantage of the growing interest in owning a smart speaker for the home?
Well, one thing that's been a big focus for us has been daily habit programming and creating content that fits into and enriches our audience's daily lives. Currently, NPR produces more daily podcasts than any other publisher, with content ranging from news to science to pop culture and more, which are all available on smart audio devices. We know smart speaker users are interested in short, useful content, and these daily podcasts fit right in. As the interest grows, NPR is committed to producing content that is additive to its audience's lives.
So far, we have established how more people have access to voice assistant technology. But how does their usage change over time? Well, our research shows that usage is increasing. This next section will cover many of the changes we're seeing. First, we wanted to know how much time people spend listening to audio on smart speakers. Luckily, Share of Ear, a study from Edison Research, has been tracking the amount of time people spend with all types of audio. Back in 2017, out of all the time that Americans listened to audio, only 1% of time with audio was listened via the smart speaker. The rest of the time was spent listening via other devices, radios, computers, smartphones, etc. Cut to 2022, and smart speakers have a 5% share of all time with audio among Americans aged 13 and older. That's a 400% increase. Now, instead of looking at all audio, let's just look at the time with all podcast listening. In 2017, 2% of all time listening to podcasts was done through a smart speaker. In 2022, that number has increased by 200%. 6% of all time listening to podcasts is done through a smart speaker device.
5 years ago, we asked smart speaker owners, how do you listen to audio most often? Mobile devices topped the list at 28%, followed by radio at 20%, and smart speakers came in third at 18%. We were amazed that in such a short period of time, the smart speaker had become the primary audio device for so many people. The audio landscape has changed a bit in 5 years. Look at the increase for mobile devices such as the smartphone or tablet. It was solidly in first place 5 years ago and has pulled away even further ahead of the pack. But the percentage who select smart speaker has increased as well. Overall, 20% of smart speaker owners say it's the device they use most often to listen to audio. However, here is the breakdown by age. Only 4% of those 18 to 24 said it was the device they used most often to listen to audio. This is a younger generation who is very reliant on mobile devices. 17% of those 25 to 34 and 18% of those 35 to 44 say that smart speaker is their #1 audio source. But look at the jump among 45 to 54-year-olds. They are much more likely to say the smart speaker is the audio source they use more often.
And how often are people using voice commands across all devices? The frequency of voice command use is increasing among voice assistant users. In 2019, 46% of voice users said they use voice commands at least once a day. And today, 57% say they use voice commands daily. The types of things that people use their smart speaker for is increasing. Consumers who have had time with technology are learning how to best use it in their lives. In 2017, smart speaker owners averaged 7.5 tasks on their smart speaker in a typical week. That average rose to 12.4 in 2022.
We see an increase in the average amount of tasks in the typical week among those who use the voice assistant on their smartphone. In 2020, they used an average of 8.8 tasks per week, and in 2022, that number is 10.7.
In our survey, we listed a number of possible tasks that a person can use on their smart speaker. These tasks are represented here, with their font size loosely based on how many people indicated that it was a task they requested on their smart speaker in a typical week. For example, play music, ask questions, set a timer or alarm, check the time, get the weather, and so on, were all common answers. We compared this to the responses from our 2017 survey, and the tasks that ranked highest then are also the tasks that ranked highest today. However, we will pull out a few items that saw notable increases between 2017 and today. More people indicated that they looked up recipes and cooking requests. More people used the smart speaker to find restaurants and businesses, to listen to podcasts and news, order an item or food, and there was even an increase in those who asked for the device to read short stories.
And because we're especially interested in audio content, we'll pull out more details on these increases for you. The number of speaker owners who request to listen to a podcast on their smart speaker increased by 22% over the past 5 years.
And news listening has increased as well. 55% of smart speaker owners listened to news on their smart speaker in 2019. That increased to 62% in 2020, and then 66% in 2022.
We have seen that growth in the consumption of NPR's on-demand content on smart speakers. Based on NPR's internal podcast reporting data, the total listening hours has more than doubled in the past 4 years. Not only has news listening on the smart speaker increased, but the amount of time listening to news on the smart speaker has increased as well. We asked those who listen to news on the smart speaker in a typical week how much time they spend listening. In 2019, 30% said 3 hours or more, and in 2022, that rose to 34%.
We asked our qualitative participants who own a smart speaker device to think about how their smart speaker usage has changed over time.
So, like I said, before I had the Alexa, I would occasionally use my phone. So it was very rarely that I would use it. But now that it's in the house, you get in more of a habit of using it. And I feel kind of lazy sometimes, but I'm like, hey, I mean, I paid for it. You know, that's what it's for. So it's definitely increased over time, my usage with it.
It's almost like any skill. It's as you learn more techniques, you use it more.
I wouldn't say I use it a ton more, just as I've become a little more, used to having it. I've used it more in situations where I might have done something a different way before.
Before it just used to be, oh, let's see what the height of Kilimanjaro is. And now it's like, I need it to make my calls and I need it to do my texts. And now I rely on it a lot more heavily than I used to.
My use kind of narrowed down to like the music and timers and playing Jeopardy and stuff like that. I probably use it as much or more than ever. It's just more specific uses.
Well, I feel like when I was younger, when it first came out, it was more, we just ask it like silly things. It wasn't as advanced, but now that I'm more mature and kind of know what I like, it's just a very like helpful thing to me now. Like it's a tool almost to make my days more efficient and my mornings more efficient.
Like in high school, it was kind of just like a joke. Like it was a very much a running joke in high school to like ask Siri to flip a coin and ask Siri like to tell us a joke and stuff like that.
When I first started using it, I just did it because I thought it was so funny that phone was talking back to me. So I used to just do it for I used to do it for hours and I would just giggle.
I feel like I use it significantly less just because now what I want to use it for is like actually like show me results for this.
But now I think I actually use it for some stuff that I know actually helps me in everyday life.
I think it's decreased. I mean, when we first got it, we were, it was novelty and super new, but I think we've kind of, I don't know, gotten over it or maybe become more used to it. I don't know.
I think when I first started using it, it was like I was using it more and more. But as I got, some advice from other people, and like it was like their paranoia kind of rubbed off on me. So like I don't know. It just was like I was using it less and less.
Oh, that's been a big progression because at first I was kind of freaked out at the thought that you can hear me and like not knowing exactly how it works. And then now we have several in our homes because we figured out how useful and how entertaining it can be. So it's progressed drastically all the way to having a smart refrigerator.
So we heard mixed experiences here. Some are using their devices less, some more, and even one person who answered that they are doing less tasks, but doing fewer tasks more often. Our survey respondents are split as well, but most of them, 44%, say they are using the smart speaker more often than they did compared to the first month they owned the device.
The final theme we'd like to share is about the messages that reach people through smart audio and how those messages are received. We asked smart speaker owners if their smart speaker ever offered more information than they requested, and 51% of owners said they did experience additional information. 41% said their smart speaker has recommended a feature without their prompting, and 31% said that their smart speaker suggested they purchase something without their prompting.
We also asked those who noticed these types of prompts on their smart speaker how much it bothered them. 60% indicated they are bothered when a smart speaker offers more information than requested. 60% also indicated they are bothered when a smart speaker recommends a feature without their prompting. And 73% indicated they are bothered when a smart speaker suggests they purchase something without their prompting. This was something we were very curious to speak about with our qualitative participants. And while many of them noted the same things, notifications or unsolicited recommendations, they had mixed feelings. Some said they only want the assistant to do what has been requested and nothing more, and were especially bothered by the thought of being sold something. Others said it was welcomed when the information offered was relevant or useful. That seems to be the key, inserting messages that feel more helpful than it is obtrusive.
50% of smart speaker owners have heard advertisements on their smart speaker. That's a rather good recall number considering the majority of advertising on these devices is placed within audio programming.
41% of smart speaker owners agree with the statement, you are likely to respond to ads on smart speakers. And among those who said they recall ads on a smart speaker device, 53% agree they are likely to respond.
We asked, compared to ads you hear in other places, would hearing an ad on a smart speaker make you more or less likely to consider a brand? 33% of smart speaker owners indicated they'd be more likely to consider brands that advertise on smart speakers. And among those who recall hearing an ad on smart speakers, 48% said they'd be more likely to consider brands that advertise on their devices.
We also asked, if given the opportunity to interact with an ad on smart speakers using your voice, how likely would you be to set a reminder, ask to be sent more information, or add an item to a shopping cart? Just about a quarter of smart speaker owners said they'd be very likely to interact with an ad in any one of these ways. We asked smart speaker owners if they agree or disagree with this statement. Brands that advertise on smart speakers are innovative. 66% of smart speaker owners agree, and 80% of smart speaker owners who have heard an ad on a device agree as well. A novel experience is a great way to make an impression with those using this technology. At this point, the novelty of this tech has worn off for some users. It is a great time to shake things up and get people's attention. In the grand scheme, this space is still very young, and there is much opportunity for change and growth, especially in the ways brands can communicate with their messages using smart audio. We hope that this time that you spent with us today has sparked an idea or two in how you can take advantage of the expanding reach of voice technology, how you can provide even better content to those who are using it, and how to better communicate with them.
Voice is everywhere, and it will continue to seep into unexpected parts of our lives. For the most part, consumers think that's a good thing, as long as we're providing them with relevant or useful tools.
That's why use is increasing. The technology helps people in so many aspects of their lives, entertains them, and provides opportunities for discovery.
And they are also given opportunities to discover brands, and our research shows those messages are indeed heard. Voice assistant users are receptive to messaging when it is done in the right way, and would be especially open to interactive and innovative experiences with brands.
Thanks for joining us for the Smart Audio Report from NPR and Edison Research. Please visit npr.org/smartaudio to download this report. There, you can also watch interview videos from this year's research and past smart audio studies. We'll keep the chat window open for a few more minutes to answer any additional questions. And if you think of one later, please email us at info@edisonresearch.com.
Thanks again for joining us today. We'll catch you next time.